welcome back. It's still Friday edition of Newdawn, and this morning we are looking at one very critical part of our daily life that has to do with where we stay, where we live, and over time we've heard that Nigeria as a country, we even have less than what we should have in terms of houses, in terms of where Nigerian schools, they call good places to lay their heads and all of that. In other words, housing deficits in this country. So we want to look at this critical sector and how we can address it using Ogun State example. To discuss that on this the program this morning, we have an estate surveyor and valuer who is also the General Manager of Ogun State Housing Corporation, estate surveyor Michael Akinwale Ojo. It's nice to have you on our program this morning.
My pleasure. Good morning, President.
All right. I think we have to hit the ground running. Now, we want to situate this discourse. Is it actually true that we have housing deficits in Nigeria? As we do read at times from some opinion, opinion writers and all of that. Do we actually have housing deficits?
Of course, the answer is yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do have housing deficits in the nation.
And the next likely question will be that what could be responsible for this? Is it that Nigerians don't build enough houses, or that they are not building houses that could accommodate so many people?
The reason mainly is just the birth rate. It's more than the production rate of housing. And obviously when you have that, you have that deficit.
And Nigerian housing deficit is estimated around 60 million units. And researchers say that Nigeria needs about 56 trillion naira to bridge this gap. So what's the way forward?
Well, it's, the way forward is just for the various governments, state governments in the country to give priority to housing, by ensuring that in the annual budgets, they, consider housing as a sector that needs to be favored in terms of allocation. Yeah.
We're looking at the Ogun State example. What's the plan in this state, basically? Okay,
you see, the roadmap of, this administration, our government-led administration, as far as housing is concerned, has actually prioritized it so well that even in the budgets, even when there was a need for every sector to be slashed in terms of, when the pandemic came, every sector of the nation needed to sit down and begin to adjust their budgets. In our sector, in this state, it's still being favored, notwithstanding the pandemic situation. And this Governor Dapo Abiodun MFR has actually prioritized, like I said earlier, by ensuring that every housing ministries, department, and agency in the states, they're at work. We have 3 sectors mainly in the states, 3 agencies. We have the Ministry of Housing, we have Ogun State Housing Corporations, we have the Ogun State Property Investment Corporation as well. These 3 sectors have actually been set up to take care of every sectors of every strata of the economy. What do I mean? The high income earner, the middle income earner, the low income earner. And the story are there for everyone to see. It's nothing that anyone will be telling you, abstract situation. We've been working the last 1 year, and this has actually witnessed the development of various housing schemes across the states. We started with Abeokuta, which obviously we are aware about. So, and in this second phase, this has actually cut across every central district of the state. So in essence, the governor has actually accorded housing a critical priority in this budget here.
Okay, now that's quite encouraging. However, now when you look at Ogun State, the way the state itself is configured, we almost the only major how do I call it? The only major flank that borders Lagos And that means that the pressure of Lagos would, one way or the other, overflow into Ogun State, particularly in the area of housing. When you look at some of these littoral communities, many of them presently do not even have land spaces and all of that to possibly accommodate the aspect of the third aspect of what you have just told us now. You said the high income, the low, medium, and the low. The low is the one that concerns me, because most times they are the ones that don't usually have where they can really call proper houses. How do you intend also, through Ogun State policy, to address all those areas where we have a population and yet there are no lands as much to accommodate your place?
Anyway, I don't actually know the source of your findings. That borders on a lack of land. Anyway.
That's what we see.
Yeah, because Ogun State, is in a vantage position by virtue of our location, with respect to Lagos State and other states like Oyo State, and the border, the border country of Republic of Benin. You see, issue of land is not a problem in Ogun State. Okay. As far as I'm aware, and this is what I've been doing in the last 30 years, in the States. And I can confirm to you, to address that need, that's why the government has actually ensured that the Ogun State Housing Corporation is actually saddled with that responsibility, of looking into the medium and the low income. While the OPIC is obviously looking at the investment side of housing investment in the state. That's why you see the pricing of stocks or units, being developed by OPIC. If you look at it, it looks like, the premium units. However, Business of Housing and Housing Corporation particularly, is actually responsible to develop, units that will accommodate the bulk of the population that will have, at the low ebb of the economy in terms of income. And over the years, especially this budget year, we have actually been mandated, like I said earlier, to look into this. We've done our research, we've done our findings, and we know where we have pressures as far as housing need, and demand, are concerned. Obviously, you don't just build anyhow. No. That's what they call housing sociology. There is the need for you to look into the demand structure and the need structure. Yes, we are very close to Lagos, but the point remains that the demand structure and the need structure of Lagos and Ogun, they're not the same. So in our development of these various schemes, we do take into cognizance all these factors. So that's why you see that at the moment, even where, I don't know whether you are conversant with the parts of the government, recently, the government is saying, this was rolled out about, recently, that it's also prepared to grant discounts to land, people who have allocations, who are struggling to make payments. I don't know whether you have read about that. Mm-hmm. That came in the news, a few hours, ago. You see, and also, there are people who may not be able to afford 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, we are also aware of these issues. That's why what we do is what we call incremental housing, whereby your entry level will be very low. We develop 1-bedroom units, 2 bedrooms. That's as your income increases, you can, increase those units. If you buy into our 1-bedroom units, you have the opportunity to extend or expand to 2 bedrooms and maximum 3 bedrooms. So that opportunity is there. Everyone within that structure, within that population bulk, we have actually considered them. At the moment, no one should be talking of, I do not have a house in Ogun State. It shouldn't be the story, because we have provisions by virtue of the program of this government. Everyone has actually been looked after.
So what about accessibility of the opportunity you just talked about? How accessibility is for low-income earners? Is this something that can just come to?
Okay, let me just give, prior to now, application form to own a house in the state is about 20,000 naira. The government in its wisdom slashed this to 5,000 at the moment. So that gives a good number of people the opportunity. That entry level of 5,000, this just as low as the cost of even recharging your phone over a week. your usual mobile phones. So the phone fee was also dislodged from 10,000 to 5,000. So, and what is, that entry level is there. And even in terms of affordability, to make sure that everyone is captured, it is giving opportunity. The government is own wisdom as well as also, we have a state bank called the Gateway Mortgage Bank, which is, responsible for provision of mortgages, residential mortgages to people, especially civil servants. Prior to now, I'm aware the bank, has a lending rate of about 18%, which that's the regular, mortgage facility they give out to people, which has currently been reduced to about 12 to 13%, and under what we call the National Housing Fund, which gives opportunity to every workers in the state. Ogun State pride itself to be a contributor, a very good contributor, to National Housing Fund. And under that fund, you have the opportunity to borrow at 6%, repayable over the number of years you hit the age of 60 or whatever that is remaining for you before the mandatory statutory year of retirement, which is 35. What a wonderful opportunity. And the bank and the MBAs in housing, we are also taking, going to every offices, private and public, to sensitize people, as touching the available opportunity. So that's what we are doing at the moment.
So what about those in the informal sector, the artisans?
Like I said, all what is lacking, as far as I'm aware, is people should be more, responsive to what is going on around them. The NHF that I mentioned is applicable to everybody, whether you're in the formal sector or the informal sector of the economy. You are also encouraged to come on board. Like these various developments that we're actually doing, both at Ministry of Housing, Ogun State Housing Corporations, and Ogun State Private Investment Corporations. The private people in the private sector, they also have the opportunity, and it's the same parameters. It's not that because you are not a civil servant, government is not looking after you. No, that was what led to the failures of some of the previous policies on housing of the national government. Think about it. Even right from 1928, during the bubonic plague, when the NDB was set up, down to the establishment of the Nigerian Building Society, also to, when you have the National Housing Policy in 1991, which was being piloted by the then military president, head of state rather, President Babangida. You see, they said housing for by the year 2000. Inability of those policies to look at what this government has paid close attention to as actually responsible for their failures. And I think with this government in place, you will see that the government is also poised to develop at least 2,000 units every year of this administration in the state, which obviously will take away the bulk of the deficit we are talking about. That's just...
Okay. Now, if we're talking about 16 million housing deficit across the country, one begin to look at how could this be possibly addressed as quickly as possible. But my question really is, sometimes in the past, I recall that when Kayode Diakonde was governor in Lagos, his own kind of housing policy was, let's build so many of these multi-story buildings that people can take flats and all of that, and they eventually become communities of their own and all of that. One would have thought that even at the federal government, at the federal level, such could have been repeated. Maybe this 16 million would have been there. So my question is, why nowadays it is not that often seen where we have government housing estates where so many people could take, particularly those ones that can just rent and eventually own. Okay. What we have these days is Either you have a flat completely sold, which means just your family for that space, whereas it could be built in such a manner that several families could utilize the space. Why are we not having similar things now?
You see, I told you something when we started this program. That's what we call sociology of housing.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not ruling out the fact that flats may be developed, you know. You see, Lagos has its own peculiarity. Ogun has its own, you know, the dynamics that, you know, surrounds housing delivery.
Yeah.
Yes, flats will also be considered, you know, like, I mean, in the projects that we have, you know, at the moment, we have, you know, on our plans to develop flats, you know, to give access to people who could not afford to buy. You know what I mean? So that you could actually rent, and as you get on, your income increase or improves, you are able to then, you know, purchase those units. That's what we call staircasing or equity share, you know, scheme, whereby even in what we are also doing, that's what we call the equity share program, whereby, you know, if you can afford the whole money, then you could just get a percentage of the unit at the, I mean, for now, and then staircase as you progress in your journey as far as your work life is concerned. Obviously, someone who is presently, you know, on level 8, in another 10 years, 15 years, you can't still be on level 8. It's not possible. Then it means as you move forward, then your income is also swelling, and you are able to get to staircase. You know, as you know now, if it's about 100%, you can buy about 50% of it. Then pay rent on the balance, and you could as well purchase the balance over the years. Those programs are also in place. You know, luckily, Ogun State was one of the states that was shortlisted by family-owned funds. You know, about 2 days ago, we were also in Abuja, you know, talking about this rent-to-own program. About 6 states were shortlisted, and Ogun State happened to be one of those states. You know, we're represented there, you know, whereby family-owned funds is willing to make funds available. You know, why have we been chosen? Because of the good track record of the state, you know, and our locations as well, like I mentioned earlier. So these are things that will be coming up in the course of these first 4 years of these administrations. And I think in a matter of 2 years or 3 years down the line, we'll begin to see a huge increase in the delivery rates of housing in the states.
All right. Now, let's look at some other aspects of housing that is not from the government side. Okay, you've given us a clear direction of government policy in terms of what the government is doing. But we also have some other categories of residents who are private. We have private investors, but we also have individuals that may want to build their own houses. How do you see the process of obtaining necessary documents to do all of this, including CFO? At times you hear people say, I've been pursuing my CFO for the past 3 years. Is that really true?
Okay, you see, as far as this government is concerned,
yeah,
you know, the governor of the state, Prince Dr. Dakwabelo, in his wisdom, has actually mandated the department in charge of the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. In this state, it's a policy that CFO should be given within 28 days.
Okay.
That's a standing policy of this administration. Yes, the application could be as far as 2 years, 3 years. You know, as simple as you know, it might look, you don't just get CFO on a platter of gold. There are documentations on the part of the applicants. And in most of the cases, applicants are responsible for the delay in the process of their certificate of occupancy. You know, if you want to get CFO in the state, you need to have your tax clearance certificates. Payments, you know, are expected to be made by you. What we say end of the day, people just apply, not backing them up with the required documents. And the department, I'm aware, they do write to most of these people, all these applicants. But what's the response rate that we get from them? You know, that is most of the delay that you have. I quite agree there could be some bureaucratic, you know, form in the past, but I can confirm to you that bureaucracy is no longer there. In terms of, if you are a civil servant in that department in this state, you must do your duty as expected of you, you know. And recently, even in my agency, I can confirm to you with witness, you know, because even if you get land from us or housing unit, we still need to check your applications through a government department who is in charge of that process of ensuring that CFO is delivered to you. You know, in the last couple of months, we've received a high number of results in terms of production of subleases, which, you know, I can confirm to you surpass what the rate used to be in the past, which also stems from the fact that the government has made a pronouncement and everybody must ensure that they work, you know, very hard to achieve that result. So that is it. Anyone who is having issues at the moment, I can only, you know, charge them to get across to the responsible, I mean, the respected agencies or departments of government or ministries, so that they can lodge that complaints. And I can confirm to you as well that within, you know, reasonable period of time, if they also do their own part of the bargain, they will have their CFO.
Their own part of the bargain.
Yeah.
That's very, very important. You see, well, I raised that issue because we often hear some people make such complaints and all of that. Okay, now let's now come to this issue of private investors. Private investors in the estates.
You mean you're talking estate developers? Or?
Yes, so developers, you know, so many of them even, you know, do media hype and all of that. And at times when you listen to some of these things they do, you might really, you want to take a second look before you, as a corporation that is also responsible for housing in Ogun State. I think right from the beginning of this state, the corporation has been in existence. So you have so much to say in that regard. What has been the, do we have a way that all these things are being monitored so that unsuspecting public would not possibly be swindled and all of that?
Okay, you see, there's a saying that in law, they say there is no ignorance. You cannot be ignorant of any action you are taking or you are about to take.
But you can be tricked.
That's what I said. You need to do your due diligence very well. You know, especially into real estate investments. Knowing fully well that is a huge investment, you know, that any individual could make in life. So, and you need to be very careful so that you don't waste your hard-earned money into the hands of, you know, all these people parading themselves as developers. I call them, you know, briefcase developers. You know, it's unfortunate that in these states, this government is not, you know, going to close his eyes or fold his arms, you know, looking at such things happening around us. No. If you are conversant with the pronouncement of His Excellency very well, you will know that as far as His Excellency is concerned, it's very passionate about the people of Ogun State. And that's why it's making every effort at ensuring that, you know, in Ogun State, you cannot parade yourself as estate developer. You know, recently I'm aware that the relevant department of government, they, you know, went after a couple of these developers, and you know, you cannot operate in Ogun State if you don't have the backing of the state. And that does not mean that the fact that someone is operating in Ogun State, you know, when I started, I said you must do your due diligence. Yeah. And the government, apparatus of government are there. This government has made it so very easy for people, even wherever you are coming from. You do not necessarily have to come to, you know, government offices in Abeokuta, where we have our headquarters. You know, we have branches across the state. Ijebu-Ode, Ota, we have in Nifo, and there is also the one-stop shop, you know, at the, you know, towards Lagos boundary, you know, set up by this government to actually attend to the need of people especially investors who want to invest in real estate in Ogun State, so that you could get the sort of first-hand information as touching requirements. And don't forget also that the world is a global village. All of these government agencies and on the internet, they have their websites, which obviously you could actually visit the website of these agencies. They have their contact information. They have procedures that are there. Guidelines as touching whatever your needs are. I.e., I want to buy land. What are the guidelines? The guidelines are spelled out clearly. I want to even transfer interest, unexpired interest on my property. The guidelines are there. You want to obtain CFO, guidelines are there. So it's not that you need to, reinvent the wheel at ensuring that people are not doomed. Like I said, the governor of Ogun State, in his wisdom, recently he has just also passed, a law that borders on, affordability, and several laws are also, have been passed at the House of Assembly, awaiting Excellency assent as touching land grabbing, to put better strength into the existing laws. So that in Ogun State, you can't say you're a land grabber. The law is going to be after you.
I wish that the law is, will they actually be after the land grabbers. Yeah. I wish. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, let's give this a wider look. It has been estimated that by 2050, the population will double. We're looking at about around 444 million people. So, but you've talked about the effort of the Ogun State government, but holistically now, do you think maybe from the federal level and other state governments, are they really addressing the problem this may bring, talking about the housing problems in future?
Well, you see, the laws are there. Very robust policies of governments that borders on housing delivery. What do we need to do? It's just that, yes, there's a saying that says you cannot continue to do the same thing the same way and expect a different result. No. We need to really put more effort. We need to be more serious. Take, for instance, in Ogun State. Yes, we are aware that the government on its own cannot deliver this, the huge deficit cannot actually deliver it. And that's why this government, it's also looking at the PPP arrangement, bringing in people, the private developers like we mentioned before. But these are going to be tested and trusted developers, not just briefcase developers. Many have seen real estate as an area that can make easy or quick money, but it's not like that in Ogun State. So developers are also going to be welcomed so that they can also, be part of this, meeting this target. And I think the federal government too is also working very well. We have the Federal Mortgage Bank, we have the family-owned funds that are also meant to ensure that, and we have the NMRC, it's a mortgage arm of business in the country that will refinance mortgages created by the primary mortgage banks. So, and these are all efforts that people need to know. Yes, people also need to change a sort of culture, like I mentioned sociology before. In this part of the country, for instance, people are averse to, getting mortgages. People are very afraid of taking loans. They felt that, yes, I don't want to take a loan, that because in their head, maybe they felt that it's a big thing or there is a taboo or something else. Honestly, these are the areas we need to look into. At the moment, the mortgage sector contributed about 0.6% to our GDP. Whereas in other developed nations of the world, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, the contribution of mortgages is about 65%. You can see that huge difference. Because your home is right to be a sort of economic product, whereby you'll be able to convert it to cash and move on in life, downsize or upgrade all manners of things. So federal government should, also ensure that if there are bottlenecks, that needs to be removed so that people could have better access to all these available opportunities as being, propagated by the government of Ogun State.
Because I've also had people complain about...
Sorry, Moses, we might not be able to take him any further. We have another set of guests that will be coming on shortly, and we quite understand all the efforts of the state as we have enumerated, and of course the federal level. Well, the parting shot I will have just asked you that to respond very briefly to is the issue of housing deficit. Where do you see Nigeria in the next 1 or 2 decades?
Well, 1 or 2 decades, that's a good about 20 years we're talking about.
Yes.
To be honest, all what we need to do is just to establish birth rate in the country and ensure that we grow our housing delivery rate higher than birth rate. And that will see us to a good level in another 10 or 20 years to come.
All right. Estate Surveyor and Valuer, Michael Akinwale Ojo, the General Manager of the State Housing Corporation. We want to thank you for sharing your time with us on the program this morning. And I'm very sure that so much of what many people don't seem to understand in that sector, you have been able to push it through this morning. We will still hope that we'll have some other opportunities, because that's a sector that we can't exhaust what the people will want to know about it. So we thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much, Presenter. It's a pleasure for coming around here.
All right, we take a short break, and when we come back, our next set of guests will be in the house, and we are going to look at another aspect of our life that will keep us healthy. What it is, just be patient, you will know in another couple of minutes. Don't go away.
I just want the papers, please.
Sir.
Salary don't enter. Yes, so. And month never even reach them. Na salary plenty, oh. No wonder I no gree collect roja from my hand. Shut up, sir.
I'm here to bail my younger brother.
Happen.
With good laws,
proper funding,
Training.
and cooperation.
If it happen.
This week in history, Edith Eleanor McLean became the first baby to be placed in an incubator at State Emigrant Hospital on Wards Island, New York on the 7th of September, 1888. The International Literacy Day is observed every 8th of September. Celebrated for the first time in 1967, the aim is to highlight the importance of literacy to individuals, communities, and societies. Every 8th of September is known as the World Physical Therapy Day. It is observed to generate awareness about the crucial contributions that physiotherapists make in the society by enabling people to be mobile, well, and independent. Nigeria's Golden Eaglets won the FIFA Under-17 World Cup held in Korea on the 9th of September.
Well, you're welcome back. Yes, healthy living is very, very critical and important for us as a nation and as individuals. And one